Hi, we're back. Thanks for staying with us. Joined in studio now by Skyler Quisenberry. He's the Director of Product Development with a company called Resonate Blends Incorporated. Their stock symbol is KOAN. Skyler, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Don. I really appreciate you having me here.
Well, we're really excited to talk to you because the cannabis space is just exploding. So many new companies are getting in. It's really taking off across the country, across Canada, across the world, really. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your background overall and your background in the cannabis space?
Sure. Yeah, so I grew up in LA, so that's my background, my personal background. On the cannabis side, I started out as a consumer, like many people in the industry. However, at the time when I started, it was very hard to find products that were predictable and controllable, right? So when I entered in the space, I took it as a personal challenge to increase efficacy and predictability for the consumer. When I started professionally, I was hired for that purpose, to increase efficacy and predictability. I found at the time from my research that you can do so through the use of the entourage effect.
Well, it's kind of interesting because you go 30 years ago, the guy that was Director of Product Development for a cannabis operation was the guy putting it in baggies. What does the Director of Product Development do in a cannabis operation these days?
So nowadays, it's a little bit more complex than that in a good way for the consumer. You're right, back then it was all about baggies and on the street corners, and it was very old school. We appreciate that time because we wouldn't be where we are today without that. However, nowadays, it's a lot more complex. We control for different ratios of compounds within formulations to control for the end effect for the consumer.
Now, you mentioned something called the entourage effect. A lot of people are not familiar with that. What is the entourage effect?
So the entourage effect is a complex idea, but the basic level is that the sum of the individual parts is greater than each one in isolation, right? So for us, if you control for specific cannabis components, cannabis compounds, in a very precise way, you can control for the effect at the end of the day. Now, the interesting part for me about that is that this industry kind of knew about that before they had a name for it.
Okay.
Are you familiar with sativas, hybrids, and indicas as classifications? Right. So sativas are more stimulative, indicas are more sedative, hybrids are a combination of both those things.
Of course.
Those categories are kind of determined by the entourage effect before they even had a name. At Resonate, we really embrace the entourage effect so that we can control for these ratios and kind of convert it into a fine art so that at the end of the day, the consumer can choose the experience they want based on the ratio of those compounds in our products.
Now, a lot of companies we talk to, they kind of set themselves apart with we're only CBD involved or we're only THC involved. I guess you're involved in both.
Yes, of course. So,
tell us about that.
Yeah, so we do incorporate both Delta-9 THC and CBD, and we're looking at other cannabinoids as well that have different effects. For us, we really embrace the entourage effect, and we utilize it on an ongoing basis. We learn more every day. We have very efficacious products now, but we also need to be able to communicate that with the consumer. It's not enough for us to understand these complexities. We have to be able to present these ideas in a way that the consumer can understand what we're trying to communicate to them. That's what we call the Resonate system.
Okay. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, the cannabis industry is just burgeoning. It's just exploding. What makes you guys different? How do you stand out from the crowd?
So our key differentiator is not only effectively utilizing the entourage effect, but putting it into kind of an easily understandable, absorbable, systemic approach. It's not enough that we can understand this, like I said before, but it's that we have to communicate this to people. Right, so that's what we call the Resonate system. It's a kind of a map. It's a way for people to understand what we're trying to give people in our products. Now, the reason our approach is valuable is that we provide a wide range of wellness solutions to allow people to live better lives, to dial up the good sensations and experiences in life and dial down the bad ones.
It's kind of interesting because it sounds very scientific, but it really is, isn't it?
It is. I mean, that's what I love. I love really looking at the data, and I'm a skeptical person, naturally. That's the way I am in my mind. So for me, it had to be proven through the data, which we collect on an ongoing basis, that these things are efficacious. There is variability amongst people, but everything's on a bell curve, right? So the majority of people can expect these effects, whereas a few outliers, we can give recommendations on different dosages and things like that.
And before we went on the air, you mentioned you're one of the founders of the company. Do you feel like you're on the ground floor of something big, something huge?
I mean, obviously, I'm very excited by this. When I first started developing for this company, I was myself skeptical about the range of possible experiences that can be given. When I started experimenting with these things, self-experimenting first, make sure. What I came to realize is that the variability and the possibilities of hitting different targets is much broader than even I had suspected.
Once again, Resonate Blends Incorporated, KOAN is their stock symbol. Skyler, fascinating interview, one of the more fascinating about cannabis we've had on the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Don. I appreciate it.